Hello, Blenders, and welcome to episode 274 of ReelBlend, a podcast available on every IMAX screen through the end of 2023.
Wow.
Yeah. I wanted to
We
break
must
that
be
news.
doing well.
We're killing it. We are killing it. On this week's show, we're going to discuss Barbie having officially crossed $1 billion and just what that means for the industry and how excited we are for that. We're going to play a fun movie game. But joining the show, we have a special guest, André Øvredal, the director of The Last Voyage of the Demeter. And he's joining us for an awesome discussion. Spoiler free, Jake.
Jake
I think was the one who got to sit down with him. Spoiler free, a movie that Jake's really excited about. And so we're excited to share with you. If you're wondering, Sean, why do you sound so attractive? And
I really like the show better right now.
That's because I am usually producing the show. I am Gabe Kovac, producer of the ReelBlend podcast, filling in for Sean O'Connell. He is with family right now and couldn't join us this week, but he will be back, and he sends his love to all the Blenders out there. But joining me, as usual, is Jake Hamilton of Fox 32 in Chicago. How you doing, Jake?
I'm doing well, man. You're doing a wonderful job. I've always said I did it that one time and got made fun of in the comments section, and my ego is far too fragile to handle that, so I'll never do it again.
I ask you guys to do a lot. I ask you guys to do a lot, and I think that's the only time that you ever come back and said, like, I really don't want to ever do that again.
Never. One person said one mean thing that one time 4 years ago, so I can't get over that. So now that one mean person, Kevin's mom.
Yeah, now you have me. So blame
She still texts me about that.
And that voice returning to the show after a much needed vacation, Kevin McCarthy of Fox 5 in Washington, D.C. Kev, welcome back to the show. Are you feeling well rested? How are you?
I'm feeling good. Yeah, I went to Maine. I'd never been to Maine before. It was a really cool trip, just disconnected. Gabe actually, to give Gabe some credit, right before I took this trip, Gabe was giving me some advice on, just trying to, just chill, get away. Because, I was having this identity question in my mind, like, who am I outside of my job and my movies and things like that? And then you got to really, as you get older, you start to try and figure out where you are. Like Jake, everybody has their own lives outside of these jobs, and sometimes it can get a little consuming. So I appreciated Gabe's advice. One thing I do want to clear up, because I think there's been a little bit of confusion about this in the news, and Gabe used this as a joke at the beginning of the show, which was about.
I thought you were in the news. I was like,
no.
Kevin's got an apology video I didn't know about.
No, but as we're recording this, there was a story that came out, I think it was earlier this week, that they're going to be extending the IMAX 70 millimeter showings of Oppenheimer through the end of August. Now, that is a little confusing because there's multiple ways to see Oppenheimer. There's regular 70 millimeter, there's digital IMAX, there's 70 millimeter IMAX. So all this means is this. So Oppenheimer originally had a 3-week window exclusively in IMAX. They then extended that window through all the IMAX showings through this coming weekend. So as we're recording this, today is August 8th. This coming weekend is the last weekend you can see Oppenheimer in IMAX, I believe, through Thursday when Blue Beetle takes over. The cool thing about the Oppenheimer news that Gabe joked about is that if you live near a 70 millimeter IMAX theater, i.e. New York, Lincoln Square, LA, Universal City Walk, you will still be able to see Oppenheimer in 70 millimeter IMAX through the end of August. Now, you might be wondering, like, what happens to the normal 70 millimeter shows? I believe those will continue, but in terms of normal IMAX, you only have, I believe, until next Thursday, which is the day Blue Beetle opens, and Blue Beetle will be taking over the normal IMAX format. So Nolan got an extra week generally, but now he's getting a full month in the 70 millimeter IMAX format. So if you live out there, San Francisco, you got AMC Metreon, so a lot of cool stuff. Quick
IMAX question while you're there. When can I see Mission Impossible in IMAX?
And we've discussed this in the show a million times, but I do feel bad.
It's such bad luck. Such bad luck.
Yeah, and
I say bad luck. They could have moved. I mean, they're in charge of their own destiny. Like we spent 3 years of every movie. Jake, you're muted. But we spent 3 years of every movie moving its release date. So it was possible.
That movie coming out in 2 weeks would crush it.
Yeah,
it would.
Like if Mission Impossible were coming out in next Friday or the week after.
If it had gone up against Blue Beetle, like I know that makes the IMAX competition different, but like even if it was after Blue Beetle, it was. I think it would do really well against that. But also, Kev, last week when you weren't here, we did a whole, I put him and Jake and Sean up for a debate on whether or not Mission Impossible should be considered a failure.
It was a passionate debate.
Yeah, so if you want to hear more about that, I'm going to send people to that episode because we got to keep this one moving because I haven't even gotten to housekeeping. And housekeeping.
Okay. That's a good question, though.
Yes. If you're watching us on YouTube, hello, thank you. Be sure to like, subscribe, head down to the comments, engage with the show. If you're listening to us, you can find us on YouTube, youtube.com/ReelBlend podcast. If you're a regular audio listener, you only listen to your podcast feeds. I get that. I do that with my podcast. But do us a favor, head over to YouTube. I'm sure you use YouTube. Hit subscribe, maybe check out a couple of the videos, maybe drop a comment. I'm trying to keep the conversation for every episode in those comments just to keep that real estate positive and fun. But as I said, we are available wherever you get your podcasts. We also have an ad-free feed for those audio listeners. With ReelBlend Premium, you can get an ad-free version of the show, as well as a newsletter from Sean every other Friday. But special guest newsletter this week, I'm also covering Sean for the newsletter. So
you're writing it this week. Wow.
I'm writing it this week. So if you want to do me a favor, could I just get like a couple hundred new signups the week that Sean is gone, just to read my newsletter? I'd love to hold that over him. So
Gabe,
head over, check the description for where to sign up. Yes, Kevin.
Your entire newsletter should just be Dear Real Blenders, rap. Period. Rap.
I'll give a tease. I'm gonna write a bit about, and I want to hear from folks who read it. I'm gonna write a bit about movie theater subscriptions. I have some thoughts.
Like Movie Pass.
Yes.
Gabe has thoughts.
I have thoughts, and I'll save those thoughts for the newsletter. Yes, but this week we have an interview. Another director interview. André Øvredal is joining us to talk about his new film, his new Dracula flick, The Last Voyage of the Demeter. Jake, you are going to review this film after we get back from the interview, but I want you have seen this. I have not seen this yet. Kevin has not seen this yet, but I know you spoke highly of it. Could you set this up? Let us know why folks should be excited to hear this interview about this film.
I think this guy's got a really great future in the horror genre. He's got a really great eye for, honestly, he worked with Guillermo del Toro on Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, and you could very much tell that this guy almost feels like someone who grew up working under Guillermo del Toro, who very much, is sort of the next generation that learned from him that is coming up. There's a lot of practical makeup effects used in both Scary Stories and Demeter. In fact, one commonality being Javier, who works as sort of like the creature feature. He's basically his Doug Jones, as Guillermo del Toro has Doug Jones. I really think he's got a great eye. I really hope that this one does well and that people see it, because I think he could be a great voice in the genre that is always welcome of fresh, original voices and people who want to do things practically and doesn't want to rely on CGI if it's not necessary. So I think he's got the goods. And we started out the conversation by paying tribute to a horror great who we just lost. Yeah,
this is true. I will go ahead and finally throw it to André Øvredal, director of The Last Voyage of the Demeter, with Jake Hamilton here in an incredible interview. Have fun.
André, seriously, good to see you again, my friend. We spoke at the TV Day a few weeks back, and as I told you then, I absolutely, truly, genuinely love this movie. So I appreciate you taking the time. Welcome to the podcast. I hate to start out on a somber note, but you are a horror fan, so you're the perfect person to talk about this with. Just yesterday, we lost the director of one of the greatest horror movies ever made, and I was wondering if you wouldn't mind talking about the legacy, your thoughts on William Friedkin, and maybe how The Exorcist influenced you as a horror fan and as a filmmaker.
Oh, it's very sad to see, but to see that he's passed away. His legacy is obviously enormous, and with just that one movie alone, he's defined horror and the way we see horror and the way we make horror. And that movie and the work he did on that movie we're measuring up against it every time we make anything.
We aired a clip on my morning show this morning, and, we all just kind of sat there watching, I don't know, the 10 or 15 seconds that we aired. And there was just this moment of like, it still works. I know this year's the 50th anniversary, but everything about it, it hasn't aged a bit. And I feel like that's the greatest horror movies of all time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's stunning how the realism and the sense of being there and the sense of texture and the performances and just the pure, simple, beautiful storytelling to tell such a horrific tale. No, I mean, it's truly a, ultimate masterpiece of horror.
Absolutely. Well, I want to talk about this film, which is also just an absolutely incredible film. I want to talk about your decision because I feel like Dracula films have a very important decision to make, and that is, do they want their Dracula to be a little bit more man-like, a little bit more human-based, or are they going to go full-blown monster with him? Obviously, you guys have made a very fantastic decision in the way that you represent Dracula in this film. And I'm just wondering if there was ever that moment where you had to sort of go one of two ways, if you had the fork in the road, and was there ever a decision to make him a little bit more man-like? Because that obviously changes the entire film, really.
Yeah, and I mean, to me, he's very man-like in the beginning of the movie. He's really at his lowest point in probably one of his lowest points in his life when we eventually find him on the ship trying to attack Petrovsky to get that one drop of blood to keep him alive in a way in his undeadness. And I think he's, to me, is a 400-year-old man who is traveling, obviously, to London to find new hunting grounds. And he has put himself in a situation where he only has the blood supply he has brought on board the ship to survive that trip, which is a month-long journey. And I see it as when he is able to turn into something else, he's able to turn into wolves, he's able to turn into all kinds of different shapes. And in this movie, we focused on the bat side of it. And I think that was, for us, or for me, when I read the script, a fantastic evolution from him being this old fragile man who barely survives to become the ultimate demonic creature that he can be.
This might be a stupid question, but Universal famously was working on their Dark Universe with all of their classic movie monsters that were going to be brought together. Do you know, was this ever going to be a part of sort of that universe that they had in mind, or was this always going to be a separate thing?
No, this is an Amblin movie. It's a DreamWorks movie in its where it's been developed. So it actually doesn't, it's not part of that universe. It was never thought to be. It was more a standalone thing. But I do see a lot of people are linking it with the Dark Universe, which is fun. I thought that was, in its initial inception of being those huge movies, it could have been great. And also, additionally, now that they're more into smaller, interesting takes on the monsters, I also think that's those movies are great. Like Invisible Man is a classic already.
Yeah, I love your Dracula in this film, and the thought of like him running across Dr. Frankenstein and Dr. Frankenstein's monster. Not that everything has to be a big giant universe, but it is fun to just kind of use your imagination for a second. I want to talk about the absolutely incredible physical performer, the actor who you have playing Dracula, Javier Botet. I know you've worked with him before. He is a brilliant physical creature actor. I'm so just curious, what sort of conversations with him do you have leading up to this? What other Draculas maybe he studied in the past? Like, I'd imagine the conversations you have with him are no different than the conversations you have with Corey or anyone else in the cast.
No, absolutely. We have, we do both rehearsals, him and me. We did conversate. We had dinners and we talk about what is going through Dracula's head. What is this all about? What is his evolution through the movie and how does he behave? To what length do we go with both his suffering and his and also his strengths, and all that stuff is up for grabs in a way in our conversation, and we develop it together. And then he comes up with suggestions for how that can manifest in physical performance, which is in the end different than it is with other actors, because he has to behave mostly with just physical mostly with just physical performance and not words. There are very, very few words. Sorry, my kid is trying to call me here, and I
No
can't.
worries.
Sorry, that's
No worries.
a lot of difference between the way we work, but essentially he's an actor like everyone else.
Yeah. Well, not to get too personal, you just mentioned your kid calling. At what point do you allow your kid to watch a movie like this? I was raised on movies like this, and when I tell people that, they're like, "Oh my God, I can't believe that your parents let you." But I always say that being introduced to horror film at a young age is what made me fall in love with film and have the job I have now. So being a filmmaker, someone who crafts this and so many incredible horror films, do you introduce them to the genre early?
I mean, he's old enough to see Troll Hunter, which is more of a comedy horror. It's a very family-friendly movie, in my opinion. I think he snuck his way into seeing Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark without...
Okay, that's a great compliment. Your kid snuck his way into seeing your movie. Like, that's the ultimate compliment.
Yeah. So that was, and there are on YouTube, you can basically see all the big scenes. It's kind of annoying. All the creature scenes are all on YouTube with somebody, talking about them. So you can also see them there. But Jane Doe and this one, they'll have to wait a little bit.
You mentioned earlier there's a phrase you used, like how far we want to go or how much we want to push it. There is, without giving anything away, there is a death about halfway through this film that basically is a flag signaling that this movie's not playing around, that you're not holding back, that you're going all in, and that anyone is expendable, which I think is great for a horror movie. That's what you want to believe, that no one is safe. I'm sort of curious if you ever experienced any sort of pushback from anyone who said, like, you can't do. I mean, it's like almost like killing the dog. You can't kill the dog. What are you doing?
No, I mean, the thing is, the movie was vetted and it was already purchased in a way by the studio and by the producers, and it had been made, many times before I was on board by several people. So it was already ingrained in the script that these deaths have to be like this. And it all had to be gruesome. The movie has to lean into, the reality of the situation they're in. And I was very happy, even though it's it's horrific stuff. I was very happy to read that the script went where it went, and we were very protective of that. But it was never really a conversation, actually. It was never really a debate.
That's great. Honestly, as a movie fan, I love to hear that. You have described this film perfectly as basically Alien on the Ocean, which I think is perfect. Alien's one of my all-time favorite films. I think it's a perfect horror film. With that idea in mind, this is a podcast that worships at the altar of Sir Ridley Scott. I am sort of curious, what is the most important lesson you've learned from Ridley Scott, what he did with Alien, that you try to put into practice here?
I mean, of course, it's the classic. It's to lean into your characters. That's number one. You have to make the audience care about your characters. And in that movie, I love the fact that you care about them because of the choices they make and the behavior they have in front of you. They're funny. They're good people. They're this, they're that. There is no real deep, profound backstories in that movie. You don't go into their deep pasts. It's all about how they are here and now. That's what makes you like them. And I think that's a big learning experience from that specific movie. Also, it's obviously the classic idea of keep the creature in the shadows as long as possible. And both him and Spielberg with Jaws, obviously, and other movies too, but those two specifically are, yeah.
Well, I kind of want to talk about that because, horror as a genre has changed a lot over 40, 50, 60 years. But one constant seems to be the value of not showing the monster or the villain or whatever the case seems to be too much. I'm just sort of curious if you ever found yourself reducing the amount of Dracula, if you shot more than we saw, if in the final edit you maybe cut back a little bit. I'm sort of curious how much that, because I agree with you 100%. The reason those movies work is because you don't see the xenomorph and you don't see the shark. And honestly, here, we don't see Dracula that much until the final act. And I'm sure curious if that was something you constantly had to struggle with at all.
Yeah, it's always hard because in this particular movie, you actually don't have just an alien creature that you don't even know. We actually have Dracula, who's a very well-known figure in culture, and he's an intelligent person. He has a story before this story begins and after that we all know in a way. It's like history almost. And then at the same time, you have to keep him in the shadows, but you also want to tell a story of how he gets emaciated by not getting blood, and when he's losing his blood supply that he's brought on board to survive this trip. There is a story to be told. So it's definitely, it was tricky to figure that out in the editing, how much to show of him, mostly because we had the need to tell that story. But when we actually then finally go full blast and show him, it was kind of okay. That's when we felt it was the right moment anyway.
You know, you mentioned sort of the fact that Dracula is well known, but I still feel like by nature of the chapter of the book that you're basing this film on, you're still given a lot more freedom than most people are, because so much is unknown in the novel as to what happened on that ship. If you were to go forward or back in this story, you're really given a lot less freedom, because the Stoker wrote very clearly what has happened and what is going to happen. Would you ever be interested in doing any kind of a sequel or a prequel to this, knowing that you would not have nearly as much creative freedom as you did on this particular part of the story?
I mean, it's so weird because this movie is trying to stay pretty rigid to the, as rigidly as we could to the novel. So if you do a sequel, it would actually be a completely revisionist take on Dracula, because you don't, what happens at the end of this movie doesn't lead exactly directly into the novel. Unless you let it. So if you want to follow our movie into the novel, then it would be a very unique take on the Dracula mythology, not really close to the book. So that's an intriguing concept, but I've always struggled with what is a sequel going to be called, because our movie is very decidedly ending with this movie.
Have these conversations come up at all? Have they been, because I will tell you, without getting into spoilers, when this movie ended, I was ready to keep going. I was ready to keep following this journey of what happens next. So like, do you know in your mind how you would do it? Have you started framing shots in your mind? Have they reached out to you at all about this sort of stuff?
No, I mean, we just got to see how this movie does. But I think it's kind of, it would be intriguing to implement what this movie ends with in a tale that is actually the original book, the actions that take place in the original book, and then you add in our ending, what our movie results with, into that. Then it could be a cool movie. I mean, it's easy to, yeah.
Even going back, like thinking about, the more man form of this particular Dracula, like I'm picturing like Renfield showing up to his castle and your Dracula being at the top of the stairs, and just how unbelievably badass that would be. And even though we've seen that scene before, whether it be, in the classic Universal monster movie with Bela, or, with Gary Oldman, I feel like your version could be something completely different. Like, have you envisioned your Dracula in other iconic Dracula moments that we know and love?
No, I mean, that's, I mean, momentarily here and there, but I mean, not like a big full on movie. Maybe we could do one movie on each chapter,
I feel like this movie's not even out yet, and I'm already putting you to work as to what other like Dracula moments I can get out of you. But it's only because I love the movie. There's this trend that I feel like is happening in Hollywood these days, which is when a director absolutely crushes it in the horror genre, they are thrown every possible classic franchise and asked, do you want to take over? Do you want to take over this franchise? Do you want to take over that franchise? I'm just sort of curious, have any studios been knocking at your door to hand over any of the franchises we know and love for you to take over?
No, not yet. But I mean, I hope they like it when they see it, because I guess nobody's really seen the movie yet. So besides, yourself and a few others. So it's, I can only hope that they enjoy it when they see it.
Not to put Javier to work without him knowing about it, but he would make a great Freddy Krueger. And I know no one knows where the Nightmare on Elm Street rights are right now. They're like lost up in the mythos of horror movie fandom right now. But Javier would make a pretty daunting figure as Freddy Krueger.
Fantastic thoughts. I can totally see what you mean.
Yeah. I want to talk about, going back to Javier, I love when filmmakers use practical makeup. I feel like when you do it, when Guillermo del Toro does it, like it's just a reminder of this sort of filmmaking that I grew up loving as a kid, growing up on John Carpenter's The Thing, which to me, like, we were talking about timeless films. It makes films timeless because great makeup doesn't age. It looks good now, will look good in 50 years, looked good 50 years ago. Can you talk about the decision to use practical makeup, if that was a fight at all, and what that means to you as someone who I think probably grew up watching the same sort of films as I did?
Yeah, no, I mean, I love it. I mean, I learned so much from working with Guillermo, of course, on Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. He was amazing at guiding the teams there on the most minute details of how to make it all look, amazing on screen, and just a love for the craft itself, and just a love for. But I think that the texture it gives, the reality for the characters and the other actors, and for the way you light them and the way you light the set and the way it all integrates as you're making the movie, makes it very tangible, and it helps to everything. Even when you do go back and have to augment stuff digitally, which you do, then it also helps this, the VFX people to make sure the changes they have to make look completely real. It integrates into what's been shot.
When deciding what the final look for Dracula is going to be, what is that balance between, look, there's a certain look that Dracula has to be, and you can't really change that, and it's got to be X, Y, and Z, versus I want to make this Dracula exclusively my own, so that whenever people were to see a screenshot of him, they would know he's from my film?
No, I think we had all the freedom in the world to create something that we enjoyed, and everybody were in on it, and everybody, from the studio, producers, Brad Fisher, he loves this stuff. He's totally a lover of exactly the same thing as you are and as I am, to make things for real and do them practical. And everyone leaned into that and leaned into the designs that we were going. Everybody were paying attention through the process. And but we were allowed to make whatever we wanted, and I think it becomes reverse engineering from the script, because there are descriptions in the script that the writer has come up with, because the ultimate creator of anything is a writer.
Sure,
the writer is the person who really sits there with nothing in front of him or her, and it becomes something. And the descriptions are there, and my job is to finesse that and make it into reality, and sometimes take it in a slightly different direction if needed. But it's already described. The characterizations of Dracula are already there on the page, and then we go, okay, what does that actually mean? If he's described like this, do we want him to have hair? Do we want him to? How is his ears? How is his eyes? Are they beady? Are they sunken? Are they black? Are they white? Are they what are, all these decisions. Mm-hmm. We go through in an enormous process of making every little decision of how wrinkles are going to be like this, line of wrinkle there. How much wrinkles do we have in the forehead, et cetera, et cetera. It's a long process of months and months and months.
You mentioned the lighting before, which I really want to touch on, because the lighting is just absolutely beautiful in this film. So much so that it really made me wonder what this film would look like in black and white. Just kind of like that, just almost like old school Universal monster movie. As a filmmaker, as a fan of those movies, could you picture this film being black and white?
Absolutely. I think it would be an amazing. I have never actually really seen it black and white beyond some flashes when we were grading it. Mm-hmm. I think it would be wonderful to see it in black and white, because you're right, it's lit very starkly and with very and beautifully, and with shades and shapes, and so it has a black and white aesthetic to it. It's true.
It honestly would look absolutely beautiful, and I really don't feel like you would have to change because I know sometimes you shoot differently for black and white than you do for color, but I don't feel like you would have to even shoot it differently. I think it would just perfectly transfer over. I'm going to cut you loose on this because I know you got to get out of here, and I'm going to end on what is an absolutely ridiculous question, but I hope you'll have fun with me. I was wondering if you could imagine sitting in a movie theater with Bram Stoker, and you watch this film, and when it's over, you lean over and go, what'd you think about how I did this? What is an aspect of your directorial decisions that you made in this film that you would love to get his thoughts on?
Oh, God. No, I mean, it would be, of course, it would be the depiction of Dracula. I mean, because obviously he has a description in the book. He's described differently as a person, as a human being. when we first meet him in the castle. So I think actually, do you like our Dracula? Do you find this to be how you saw him? That would be obviously, and it's scary. Do you find it actually scary?
Well, I just to cut you loose, I got to tell you, man, as someone who was raised on horror films, who loves horror films, and is oftentimes a very harsh critic of horror films, I love the film. I thought it was brutal. I thought it was scary, and I'm going to do everything I can to get as many people out there to see it. But seriously, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to join ReelBlend, and hopefully, as your career is sure to continue, you'll keep coming back, because we love having filmmakers like you on the show, man.
Oh, it was a pleasure talking with you again, and yes, I would love that.
And a thank you to André Øvredal for joining us. And a thank you to Jake for handling that interview solo. Let the folks know, what did you think of the interview, but what did you think of the film? I want to get your review, spoiler-free review, and then eventually, if you have it, your star rating. But how was the interview? How was the film?
I really enjoyed talking with him. As you guys know, I'm a massive fan of the horror genre, was raised on the horror genre, was raised on monster movies and slasher movies. And so, anytime I get the chance to sort of geek out on that level with someone who was sort of also raised in that environment, I love the story of the fact that his own kid snuck in to see his horror movie, which I feel like has got to be sort of the greatest kind of badge of honor. But no, he seems like a really great guy. It was interesting. I felt like I kind of tried to tiptoe around, what he's doing next and what he might have thrown at him after people start seeing this film, because no matter how well it does, it doesn't change the fact that it's still a great movie. And it seemed like he was a little unsure as to what his next step is. It seemed very much we'll see how it goes. And and it's a bummer. I really hope that's not the case. I hope it's just a matter of this is a great film, and this film is going to be a ticket to another great film, because it doesn't matter whether this makes $100 million or $100. Any filmmaker should be able to look at this and see what he did with it and go, okay, damn, all right, Jake, well done.
If it does do $100 million, do you think that he would come back for a prequel called The Second to Last Voyage?
Second to Last. We win back.
But it's the second one. It's the second
it's just the ship going to Romania and Transylvania to get the boxes of the dirt and everything.
Folks that listened to it did hear, I think you heap praise on your reaction to this film in that interview. But what did you think of the film?
I absolutely love the film. Here's the thing, is that Dracula is one of those IPs that at this point, anytime I see a new Dracula title announced, I just sort of roll my eyes and go what possible different variation could you give me that is original, that doesn't feel like it's been done a million times before? I feel the same thing every time I see a new Robin Hood announced, or it's just what more could you possibly give us? How many different variations? Here's the benefit, though, as you heard in the interview, is that this particular Dracula tale is based on a singular chapter. I believe it is chapter 6 of Bram Stoker's Dracula, which is basically a collection of diary entries and newspaper articles that talk about a ship that goes from, I believe, Transylvania to England that was hired to carry over, suspiciously, a bunch of empty boxes of dirt. And strange things start happening on the boat. And by the time the boat arrives into England, it has crashed into shore. All of the crew is gone, and that's all you know. It's a very cool chapter that very much leaves what the hell happened on that ship up to the imagination. And this is just a really cool cinematic version of what if this is what happened. And as we talk about, he very much takes the more monster approach to Dracula. He's much more From Dusk Till Dawn vampire than Gary Oldman and Coppola's Dracula. It's a brutal movie. It is an R-rated movie. It knows what kind of movie it is, and it knows what it has to do, and it knows the end game. It's a brutal film. It's an original film. I'm going to be honest, I sort of pressed play going, all right, here we go. Let's see what this is. And about 30 minutes in, I texted one of our friends over at Universal Pictures and just said, hey, man, is it just me or is this movie fucking awesome? And he goes, dude, I know. And it is a friend of ours, friend of the show, who is oftentimes very honest about what kind of movies that sometimes that we have to watch. But we both sort of reveled in the fact that for an August Dracula movie, which you wouldn't necessarily think would yield the most fresh product available, it was surprisingly great. I was a big fan, and I really want to see André saddled with both original content, but I could also see him doing, being one of those directors that does great things and gives fresh take, like Radio Silence did with Scream. I could see him doing something really fresh with some more established IP. So I absolutely love this film. If look, we're entering that really strange stretch of movie going where you're basically desperate for anything. Oftentimes the best thing to happen during this time of year when it comes to movies is all the movies you loved throughout the summer are being released on Blu-ray and digital, so you can rewatch them. But look, if you're looking for something in the movies that is not Barbie and Oppenheimer that is going to be worth your money, I would absolutely say this is it. Nice. Did you have, just because people ask, sure, did you have a star rating? I'd give it, what did we do, out of 5? I'd say a really enthusiastic 4 out of 5. Awesome. I love that. Well, Jake, I'm going to ask you to keep going because quickly we're going to give some flowers to Barbie for crossing $1 billion at the worldwide box office. It is only the second movie this year to do that. It is likely, and I say very likely because it's like $50 million shy, going to be the second to cross $500 million domestic. And that is pretty incredible. What were your thoughts on this? It felt like an inevitability, I think, after the first weekend, if not the second. But yeah, what's your read on this? Obviously, congratulations to Greta Gerwig and the team, because although Barbie is an IP in that it's a toy, it's not a movie franchise. That's, that's going back to the well. So your thoughts? Yeah, it's all the more impressive considering the context of just sort of the cinematic environment that we're in. So there are now 53 different movies in movie history that have crossed the $1 billion mark. The first one being Titanic, and it took Titanic almost a huge chunk of its run to cross that. It took Barbie 3 weeks, and I get the times have changed, but there used to be pre-pandemic. It wouldn't be out of the norm for 4 or 5 movies to cross the $1 billion mark. We often talk about, for a while, Marvel was just kind of churning about. And a majority of those movies were Disney movies. They were Star Wars and they were Marvel, and that sort of entered us into the industry that we're in now. This bubble that I feel like we've hit was that movies are being made to make $1 billion, and when they don't, they're a failure. Right. So the fact that we are $700 million failure, exactly. The fact that we are in August, and look, I got to be honest, I don't really see another $1 billion movie on the horizon. If Guardians can't make $900 million, I don't see the Marvels doing it. We don't even know if Dune's going to come out this year. I honestly think, like, as for this year, it's done. Like the $1 billion box office is over, and I think Barbie is going to end up surpassing Super Mario and becoming the highest grossing film of the year. Obviously, all accolades, you got to give to Greta Gerwig, who is not the first female director to make $1 billion movie, because a lot of female directors have co-directed films that have crossed the $1 billion mark, like Frozen. She's the first solo female director to cross the $1 billion mark, which is an absolutely incredible achievement. But yeah, you're talking about, like you said, sure, Barbie is an IP in its own right, but not in the way that so many other movies that have crossed the $1 billion mark are. It still had to establish itself for what it was. And look, I'm going to be completely honest. When I saw Barbie, I remember thinking, I don't know how people are going to respond to that. It's got a lot of big ideas, and it's got a lot to say, and I don't think it's the movie that people think it's going to be. So look, I was 110% wrong in thinking, like, I thought, well, it'll do well opening weekend, but I think once word gets out that it's not the 2-hour-long Barbie commercial that some people are wanting it to be, that maybe it's not going to track as well in the weeks after. And boy, was I wrong. And honestly, very happily wrong. I was going to say, what does that say about the, I think filmmakers are always trying to tell people that the audience is smarter than, producers or pundits give them credit for. But I mean, to that point, I think people are not only, the fact that it's 3 weeks in and it's still making this much money shows that, as you're saying, that it's not just the brand that's doing it, it's the movie itself is getting people to come back. Sure. And as we were about to transition into Oppenheimer, the only thing I can stress, and this always happens, and this is the most frustrating thing that comes out of really great moments in Hollywood like this, is that Hollywood learns the wrong lesson. The lesson is not, let's greenlight Rock'em Sock'em Robots, let's greenlight an Uno movie, let's greenlight Monopoly. The lesson is not, let's dish out everything. It feels like that moment in the early 2000s when X-Men did really well and everyone went and bought every single Marvel and superhero title available. The lesson is not, let's find really two different movies and combine them on the same weekend and make a fun title. Wouldn't it be cool if Paw Patrol and Saw X came on the same weekend? Like, let's do it. Like, that is not the lesson. The lesson is, look what happens when you give great original filmmakers with a voice the chance to kind of make the movie that they want to make, and you step back and you don't interfere, and props to the marketing department over at Barbie. You guys all saw everything. We've talked about it. We've shown the videos, everything that they did. Rather than change what Barbie was, they said, look, this is what we got to work with. Let's show why this is special. And I just hope that somewhere in Hollywood there's a board meeting where someone's going, Oppenheimer and Barbie are both films given to great directors with great voices and allowed to be told in their own way. Maybe we should do that. And I'm sure that's I don't know, it's probably not happening.
Jake,
but don't worry. Saw Patrol coming to theaters later.
I was
going to
say, Jake, when you made that joke, did you know that there's actually a Rock'em Sock'em Robots live action movie in development? Did you know that?
As long as it doesn't star Vin Diesel, I'll be good.
So I did want to say, this is according to Wikipedia, so take that with a large grain of salt. But looking at, these are all no release dates. They have Barbie as the Mattel films, and then they have an untitled Barney film, a Hot Wheels film. They have a Magic 8-Ball movie. They have a Polly Pocket.
Wait, isn't Daniel Kaluuya
doing the Barbie movie?
Yeah.
So this is the new MCU. It's the Mattel Cinematic Universe.
Yeah. Oh my gosh! Imagine that's the baton that gets passed. That's incredible. Yes. While we're here, I wanted to also highlight just the phenomenon that continues to be Barbenheimer, and that's, again, Oppenheimer is playing in a different game at a different level than Barbie, of course, but is, I think, equally sort of astonishing in the way that it's found success. It's crossed $500 million worldwide, and as we mentioned earlier, is even extending its 70mm run through August. Kev, as our Oppenheimer champion,
is Kevin the right person to talk about this? I feel like he doesn't even really like Nolan.
What are your thoughts on that achievement? Yeah.
I think what we need here is Helen Mirren to butt in during this and say, we don't think Kevin is the right person to make this point.
If you want someone to make an objective perspective about Oppenheimer, Kevin McCarthy is not the right person.
Right.
No, I mean, here's the thing. At the end of the day, I mean, everybody knows I'm a Nolan fan, but I setting aside my fandom, to think about what this film has done in its first 3 weeks is astounding. You're talking about a movie that is a 3-hour R-rated historical drama with a lead actor. Now, we all know who Cillian Murphy is, but he's not, Harrison Ford. He's not Brad Pitt.
To your point, this feels like Cillian Murphy finally getting a role that he deserves. Like, this feels like this is going to be, now everyone knows Cillian Murphy, even though he's been around and done incredible work. To your point, this feels like the first one that people are really going to know on a grand scale.
Yeah, and it's his 6th Nolan film, which is crazy. But these numbers are crazy, and I kind of wanted to just highlight one particular aspect of this, as Gabe mentioned. So as we're recording the show right now, Oppenheimer sits at $556 million worldwide, I believe, on a reported $100 million budget. Again, there's no CGI
if it stopped
in the film.
Right there, it would be fine. If it stopped right there, that'd be a great number.
Yeah, and so in terms of like that number, that currently sits at number 7 in the worldwide box office in the entire year. But to me, what I find really insane are the movies that it's already passed. Now, the reason I'm mentioning this is I'm not trying to put other films down. I want to make a point about the Nolan name, because you're dealing with an R-rated film, as I mentioned, that's 3 hours. Portions are in black and white. It's a drama. It's about the father of the atomic bomb. It's World War II. So it's not something that you would generally think would be a summer blockbuster, but he releases it in the middle of the summer, like he did with Dunkirk and a lot of his films. But right now, as I mentioned, it's sitting at $556 million. It is already well past Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, which sits at 493. It passed Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. It's made more money than Transformers, more money than John Wick Chapter 4, more money than Elemental. And the one that blows my mind is Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Indiana Jones is sitting at 368 million worldwide right now.
Dude, you know what's crazy? That a Han Solo movie without Harrison Ford made more money worldwide than an Indiana Jones movie with Harrison Ford.
It's insane. And
I think don't all of those except for John Wick have a bigger budget? I think John Wick has the same budget. I think John Wick is also a $100 million movie, but
I would imagine
all of those are at least 150 plus, right?
Yeah.
And every one of those is actually PG-13 except for John Wick. Yeah. So remember, I mean, and this is obviously an obvious point, but the R rating does limit your audience. It does limit the people who buy your tickets.
So does it being 3 hours.
Right. Yeah. And so as we're recording this, I think this is really fascinating. So by the time this episode comes out, the movie will have passed. We're recording Tuesday, August 8th. The movie will have passed The Little Mermaid. Now that to me is insane.
A movie that like you could have told me before the summer, you could have said, hey, you know, what if I told you The Little Mermaid was the highest grossing movie of the summer? And I would have said, oh yeah, okay. You know, like, I buy it. That makes sense.
Well, dude, Little Mermaid not hitting a billion is insane to me. So like Little Mermaid, just to give some context, Little Mermaid is currently sitting at 566 million worldwide. Now that movie
not hitting 600 million is nuts.
It's pretty much done. It comes to Disney Plus soon. I don't see it making that much more money. Oppenheimer is going to pass that. Now here's the crazy part. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is sitting at 683. Fast X is at 704 million worldwide.
You think Guardians is
845. This is where I'm going with this. So Guardians is at 845 million, Fast X 704, Spider-Man 683. It's definitely going to pass Spider-Man for sure. I mean, that's only another 110 million or so.
Yeah, but I'm curious.
Hasn't opened in China yet. Opens in China on August 30th. He has a huge audience in China. So we're looking at a possibility. I've seen numbers up to 900 million. If this thing makes $900 million, it would pass Guardians 3 and be sitting at the number 3 spot of the entire year. Wow. Now, sure, it might not get to Guardians. So that means it passes Fast X, Spider-Man, Little Mermaid, and all the other ones I mentioned. I just want to say how insane that is. And I'm not trying to sit here and like sit on a high horse about Oppenheimer and Nolan, but is there a filmmaker in our time, in our generation, that has the ability to do this outside of James Cameron? I don't know any other named filmmaker that has the ability to bring that much box office to a film like that. I mean, it is kind of insane. Are you guys surprised by how big of a deal this is?
Yeah. Well, that's what I was saying. And I think they're both just as shocking. Yeah. But my point is, I don't know that it's going to go as high as you think. I don't think it's going to. In China, I was looking at in China, Dunkirk, which Oppenheimer is its own beast. We can't 1-to-1, but it only made 50 million in China. And I don't know that it's going to make a lot more than that.
Where do you think it stops? Where do you think it stops? So right now we're at 556. We're 18 days in.
How much is Spider-Man?
Spider-Man is sitting currently at 683. I think it's definitely going to pass that.
I don't know. I'd be curious what the projections are for this weekend, because I think it's going to fade, and I think that people are going to start watching other things.
Dude,
I just don't know that it's going to make. I just don't know that it's going to. Maybe it crosses Spider-Man, but I would be surprised if it crossed 7. I think. So Jake, you had something you wanted to wrap?
Yeah, I wanted to ask you guys if after the success of Oppenheimer and how well everything sort of seemed to work out for Nolan, does he call Universal home?
Yes. Oh, they
I think they're going to make sure that he does. I think he would be fine taking whatever his idea is and taking it to whoever's going to give him the money that he wants. I think that's what it affords him. But I think Universal is going to go, oh no, we'll get you we'll get you more exclusive weeks. We'll get you as much money as you need. And he's not that he's going to ask for more than he needs, but
I mean, they gave him everything that any filmmaker could possibly dream for.
Universal would be wrong to not. It's their game to lose as far as keeping him. I think he's happy there, but
why it's a great question is everything he asked for, he delivered back to them and then some. Like it wasn't just like, hey, give me 3 weeks. Because remember, there was a whole discussion when Mission was losing its IMAX, and we were like, I wonder if Mission will end up sharing IMAX with Oppenheimer, and maybe in Oppenheimer's second or third weekend it'll fall off and the IMAX numbers won't be as good. I mean, I'm pretty sure these are the biggest IMAX numbers of his career, but props to Universal, because if you go back and listen to our interview, just a shameless plug, we had Christopher Nolan on and Greta Gerwig. To Jake's point about when we first saw Barbie, when you open a movie with a 2001 homage, I mean, who's your audience there, right? And clearly it's working for everybody. And she gave us a great answer about that.
That just goes to show, I think, how smart she is in that she picked the right scene, that like what that scene is doing is perfect for her story. And then if you happen to know what it's pulling from, it just keeps cascading with just this awesome subtext.
And I also think, like, you know, and again, I'll plug Greta Gerwig as well, because we've had these two filmmakers, these massive films. I can't believe they've been on our show. It's insane to me. The Greta interview is so special because Jake and I were rocking pink together. But
one of the many reasons it was special, yes.
Yeah. But one more thing on the Nolan thing, and then we'll move on. Nolan gave us an answer in our interview about the R rating, right? And going back to Jake's question about Universal, and you know, Nolan told us, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jake, he said that they basically brought the script to Universal and said it has to be 3 hours and it has to be rated R. Like those were like two actual aspects of it. And Universal, you know, for a movie studio, again, going back before the movie opened, 3-hour R-rated historical drama summer release.
Ooh.
You know, you're limiting so much of your audience already. So I mean, I don't think he goes anywhere else, Jake. I feel like Universal literally, I don't know if you guys know this, like in theaters around the country, the 70 millimeter showings, not the IMAX ones, they hired projectionists, not just the IMAX ones, but to run those 70 millimeter prints, because, and that's why they're staggered and timed the way they are. A professional projectionist is going into those booths and running those prints. So my friend saw it today at 10:50. It's been out for 19 days. I asked her, was there anything wrong with the print? She goes, I saw 3 tiny imperfections. Because these days, nobody in this industry knows how to run projectors anymore, because it's all digital. Yep. And so, like, to hire these professional people to bring them in to give people that experience, Universal did that, you know, and Nolan did that. And I think yeah, it's a big deal. I'm sorry. It's just a really cool thing to see.
It is. We are going to round off today's episode with maybe 2 rounds of a game, because we went a lot longer on giving them flowers than I intended, which is fine. 2 incredible movies doing an incredible thing. And again, actually, to put it on what I was trying to say, we were talking about the context of all these other movies. I mean, that's why this is so great, is because all those other movies are not living up to what we thought they would. It's been a pretty... It's been a pretty dire year is kind of what the story was up until the Barbenheimer weekend. And so this just feels like such a revitalization for the industry. Similar to how Top Gun last year felt like it felt like a moment of like, oh, we're not going to lose this. Or, oh, there's viability there. And
there's still a market for movies if the movies deliver.
Yeah. And this matches that. And that's amazing. But today's game to round off the episode is going to be a return to if you were here a couple weeks ago on the main feed, we played What Year Was It? This is a rendition, a version of that game. Thank you, Donovan, for providing this as well. It's called Where Was It? And so rather than me list off some movies and you have to let me know what year were they all released in, your job, gentlemen, is to tell me where they were all set. Not where they were shot, but where were they set? And this should be pretty fun and incredibly difficult. And I'm glad that I'm the game master and not playing it, because I would be terrible at this. I'd be terrible at this.
I feel like Jake's going to destroy me on this. Like
I don't know. I don't remember
I'm
having
so bad at geography. Knowing.
I will let you, gentlemen, if you need a piece of paper or something, I'll let you grab that while I explain to our audience how this is going to work. Each round will have 3 clues, which I will reveal one at a time. After each clue is revealed, these gentlemen will have a chance to jot down their answer and lock it in. They will not reveal until the end of the round. But if they put their guess at the first clue, it is worth 3 points. If I reveal the second clue and they have to change their answer, that answer is now only worth 2 points. If I reveal the third clue and they have to change their answer yet again, that will only be worth 1 point. And of course, if they miss it, they miss it. This should be really fun. I'll give you an example right now. If it doesn't make sense, it'll make sense as we play it. But for instance, let's say I say, where were 30 Days of Night, Insomnia, and Balto all set? The answer would be Alaska.
Oh, I was about to say, I know this one.
We played that one. But gentlemen, do you have your pencils and papers ready or whatever you need to play
Start
this game?
your pens.
I think we only have enough time for a couple rounds of this, but this will be fun. We'll see if we can get our competitive. I know you guys like to be competitive. We'll see if we get this going. Our first round and our first clue. This is worth 3 points. We have From Here to Eternity. From Here to Eternity. And my face is the same face as Kevin's of I don't know. From Here to Eternity. This is the 3 point. This is a 3 point clue. I've skimmed through. I've looked at a lot of these, and some of the 3 point clues are really easy.
Okay, clarification on the rules.
Sure.
Does that have to be the city, or can we do the state?
No, it's just the state. Just the state where
Okay.
it's set in. Yeah.
Great. Okay, I'm good.
You guys
I'm
locked in? I think this will be the make or break. I think.
Okay.
For 2 points. Forgetting Sarah Marshall.
Yep.
Forgetting Sarah Marshall.
I'm
Jake
staying
had
on
to
my
change?
3-pointer.
Jake, you locked in for 2?
Yeah, I'm locked in for 2. Damn it.
All right, and for 1 point, this is an easy round. We're just warming up. For 1 point, Lilo and Stitch.
I wouldn't even have known that one, but yeah.
Really?
That's out of the 3, that's the hardest one.
Lilo and Stitch?
I don't really remember. I mean,
Okay.
I saw
Really?
Lilo and Stitch
It's so like this state.
I was gonna say it's very much about.
I hope I'm not wrong.
You could be wrong. Let's find out. Okay, so
Oh no!
what
don't tell
state
me.
were these 3 films?
You
set
know
in?
what it is. You know, for Forgetting Sarah Marshall. To me, that's the easiest one.
Yeah, but Forgetting Sarah Marshall is kind of what threw me off because I again, since we're already past the point where we've written our things down, I know it's a tropical aspect.
All right.
So I was trying to think if Forgetting Sarah Marshall was actually the one that threw me a bit because I couldn't remember if it was this exact spot. But okay, all right. Anyways,
Jake, your 2 point guess
2 points.
is
Hawaii.
and Kevin, your 3 point guess.
3-point guess.
Hawaii.
Well done.
Kevin gets 3 points. Jake gets 2. And that's how the game is played, folks. So we will keep it moving. And let me see if I can find something a little bit harder. Maybe not. We're going to start with, in our second round for 3 points, your first clue is Blood Simple.
Oh my gosh.
Blood Simple. Blood Simple for 3 points.
I wrote that down very confidently and then just realized I'm not sure that's right.
That's my favorite Coen Brothers movie.
It's a great movie.
I wrote it down with such cockiness without having anything to back it up. I'm like a true internet bro.
Didn't Barry Sonnenfeld shoot that movie? And I think
remember
I'm pretty sure
he told us the story about the camera going over the drunk at the bar.
Yeah.
And they didn't want to do that.
Yeah, and it's funny.
Brilliant.
Yeah. Right, we did have Barry. So Barry was on the show. That was a shot that I saw in high school that blew my mind. It was so simple. It was just like going over the beer.
It was Blood Simple, you might say.
Yeah. But go back and listen to that episode. He was actually really funny. We had to edit a lot of that interview out, though. Let me think, because he used to be a director of adult film or shoot adult films in some way.
A story for another time, Kev. Are you guys locked in with your 3 point guesses?
I'm just gonna go. Yeah, I'm gonna just do a guess. Okay.
All right.
I'm pretty sure I'm wrong.
This is another one that I think you'll either feel bad or feel great. For 2 points, and I can't believe this is 2 points. Varsity Blues.
I'm locked in for 3, baby.
Varsity Blues. I mean, you should know where Varsity Blues is set, just given these are all set in the United States of America. And sorry for our international listeners playing along at home if this is extra difficult, because you're like, I know 12 states, I don't know. That would be tough.
To clarify, I have gone down to a 2 point level now.
2 point. All right. For 1 point, your 1 point clue is Selena, which I wouldn't have guessed that.
Well, she's from. Well, it depends.
we'll get there.
That's more about if you know where she's from and less
Sure.
where the movie said.
Kev, are you staying locked in?
I'm staying locked in on 2.
What's your 2-point guess?
Texas?
And Jake for 3 points.
The Coen brothers love filming some of their best movies in Texas.
All right, that ties it up. You guys swapped points there. Jake with 3, Kevin with 2. It's now tied 5-5. We have time for a couple more of these. All right.
I rewatched Blood Simple maybe about a year ago, and it's so great to see like the kernels that would become sort of the Coen brothers tropes that we all know and like. It's so Coen brothers. It's brilliant. Yeah, it's brilliant.
That's why it's fun to go back and watch like. If you rewatch Nolan's Following, his first like feature that because he was the DP on that, you can see it all. Yeah. It's all there. Even Oppenheimer's in there.
Same way when you watch Duel, you're like, oh, this is definitely the guy who would make Jaws in a couple of years.
That's great. It's that perspective is
Jaws
really cool.
on the road. You mean?
Yeah, basically, yeah.
It is. No, Duel literally is Jaws on the road. Yeah. It's the same movie. Yeah.
All right. We'll go to the third round in this. Where was it? Game.
Wasn't Duel a TV movie originally, Jake?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
For 3 points in this round, your clue is Gone Girl. Where was Gone Girl set?
Oh no.
Where was Gone Girl set?
I know what it is. I know what it is.
All right, hold on a second.
I'm locked in for 3.
Wow.
Jake is in for 3. How confident is this guess, Kevin?
Not at all.
Not at all.
God, it's so funny you bring this up because I was literally talking about my interview with Ben Affleck today because for that movie I had an untorn Pearl Harbor ticket that I never used from 2001.
But now, what does that say about Pearl Harbor?
Yeah,
but I brought it to the interview. I was like, Mr. Affleck, do you mind tearing this for me like an usher?
Yeah.
He literally went like this. He was like, he looked in the camera and like smiled. I was like, that is the anyways.
That's pretty great.
Let me think. Wow, this is tough. Okay. I don't know. Okay, I'm just gonna write down a 3 point guess.
You got a 1 in 50 shot, man.
For 2 points. For 2 points, we have Roadhouse.
Roadhouse,
I feel like should have been the 3-point clue, in my opinion. It's harder to know where that was set. To me, Roadhouse could kind of be set anywhere, but I'm misremembering Roadhouse. Maybe it's very much. I gotta be honest.
I'm with you. I feel like Roadhouse is a harder clue, and I'm a little surprised that this is the state that Roadhouse takes place in.
Yeah, but thank you, Donovan, for putting this game together. I don't mean to be too critical, but
yeah, we know that you did all this work. You did free, all this work. Do it better.
Yeah. All right. Any changes?
I'm staying locked in.
No,
staying locked in.
I know mine's wrong, but yeah.
For 1 point, and I feel like this was a bit. I'm curious to hear you guys' thought on this because this has been a while since I've seen this movie, and but I felt like this was not globetrotting, but what would you say, trotting around the country? The assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford. It's your 1 point clue. To me, I feel like that movie moves around a bit. Like I wouldn't guess that it's all set in one state, but maybe it was.
All right, I'll stick with my 3-pointer. I don't know if it's right or wrong.
We both locked in for 3. No changes.
Yeah. No changes.
Kevin, your 3-point guess.
New York.
Jake, your 3-point guess.
Missouri.
Jake jumps into the lead with Missouri,
Beautiful.
My home state.
All righty.
With
honestly, the weird and this is going to take away from like my whatever the impressiveness of me getting that, but I remember a big fight between Ben Affleck and Fincher or maybe it was fake or whatever, that they wanted Affleck to wear the Cardinals hat during Gone Girl, and he didn't want to wear it because he's a big Sox fan.
But he wears a Blues hat, right? Doesn't he wear he wears another?
Does he? He wouldn't wear a Cardinals hat?
I think he wears some other. I thought he wore some other just non-baseball hat. I thought he did wear a Missouri hat.
But the source of contention came from that he was supposed to wear a Cardinals hat.
Yeah, that is a good story. And I couldn't imagine having the guts to tell David Fincher, no, sir, I will be doing something.
No, sir, I will not.
I will be doing something else in your movie than you ask me to do. No. All right, for 3 points in this next round, And Kev, you'll have to win big here to keep it going. We have The Missing. The Missing.
Missing.
The Missing.
Is that Michael Mann? No. The Missing.
I couldn't tell you. I can look.
Is it Ron Howard?
Yes.
I know. I think. Okay, I know what movie it is, but I don't want to say it because I feel like that gives Kevin.
Yes. By Ron.
I have no idea.
Man,
I'm still guessing.
Ron
I
Howard.
don't know. I mean, I know what movie it is, but I don't. I'm guessing as to the state.
Ron Howard's career always just fascinates me. How is he underrated? He just feels underrated. He just feels like
Ron Howard almost feels like in the same category as Rob Reiner.
Yeah.
Similar. Yeah. I would say that even still, Ron Howard is more prolific though.
Yeah.
And I feel like that
I
gets
don't know.
lost.
Dude, Rob Reiner did Spinal Tap, When Harry Met Sally, Misery, A Few Good Men. That's pretty prolific.
No, very prolific. But I'm just saying Ron Howard over the course of how many decades just kept turning out a good movie.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think he should have won. I know he won Best Director for Beautiful Mind. To me, he deserved it for Apollo 13.
Yeah.
I love A Beautiful Mind.
I don't disagree with that. For 2 points, you guys locked in with your 3-point guesses?
Yeah.
We have The Hills Have Eyes.
Oh, okay. All right. Now I'm locked in for 2.
I have no idea.
All right, locked in for 2. Okay, your final clue. The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. So my question to you is, what state were these 3 films set in? The Missing, The Hills Have Eyes, and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Ooh, wait. Am I wrong?
Now's a good time to figure that out.
I'm sticking with my number 2. I'm sticking with my 2.
Yeah, I don't know.
You're going for 3, baby? Kevin's going for 3.
No, I mean, I don't know. I just the one I wrote down for 3 is definitely not the one you just mentioned for 1. So it's not. I wrote down Seattle, so I'm good.
That's a city.
That's a city.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I went Washington. Sorry.
Okay, so your 3-point guess is Washington.
Yeah.
And Jake, your 2-point guess.
New Mexico?
New Mexico is correct.
Yeah!
New Mexico is correct. And I'm just going to say Jake wins it there. 10 points to 5.
Oh, yeah.
Good game.
Did really well. Both did really well. I think you both scored points in most of those rounds. Thank you again to Donovan for sending in that game. It's a fun way to round off the show this week. But I will leave you with this. If you're listening, head over to YouTube. If you're in YouTube, head down to the comments and answer. What is your favorite Dracula movie? It doesn't have to be Dracula is the main character. It can be a movie where Dracula shows up. I think there's a lot of fun movies that use Dracula as a side character. It could be Hotel Transylvania 1, 2, 3, or how many of those have they made? 4?
Didn't they just start going straight to Amazon?
I don't know. I've had a lot of fun watching those movies the times I have, so not shitting on that movie.
Didn't Sandler not return for one of them?
Certain point he stopped coming back.
I don't think he's like in the 4th one or something like that. They had somebody else play Dracula.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yes, head down to the comments. Let us know what's your favorite Dracula movie. And since it's the comments and you can go on, let us know why. We want to know why. But that is this week's show. And as usual, you can follow us at Jake's Takes, at Kevin McCarthy TV, at Sean_O'Connell, who will be back next week. I am at Gabe Kovac, and the show is at ReelBlend. Pay your artists. Is that what we're doing it now? Did we decide that last week?
Pay your writers. Pay your artists.
Pay your artists.
The man who moved the earth
Was an artist that you should pay.
Yeah.